Scotland, much of England and Wales Thursday morning. And with the strong sunshine from the word go, temperatures will shoot up. But for parts of central and western Scotland, Northern Ireland, and then elsewhere across Scotland, it looks like there'll be some showery rain turning up by the afternoon. Cooler here, but further south, it looks like temperatures will reach 29 or even 30 Celsius in some spots in the southeast. We're looking at mid-20s across parts of Wales, low 20s for parts of southern and eastern Scotland. But for Scotland, for the far north of Northern Ireland, we'll see outbreaks of rain, heavy and persistent for western Scotland by dawn on Friday. Clear spells once again further south and a muggy night to come. Temperatures really not dropping far on Friday morning and then rising quickly during the day with the strong sunshine once again. Now, for Scotland, for Northern Ireland, a weather front here will bring thicker cloud and some outbreaks of rain, perhaps fringing into the far north of England by the afternoon. But further south, with the strong sunshine, temperatures will be remarkably high, shooting up from Thursday up to 34 Celsius in places before coming down at the weekend.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
On radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
with honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans. Very shortly, my comedy guest and myself will be taking you through tomorrow morning's newspapers. But first, here's Polly with the news headlines.
Simon, thank you very much. You're watching GB News and the latest stories tonight. Downing Street says the Prime Minister is surprised by the resignation of his ethics advisor. Lord Geit says, with regrets, he feels it's the right thing to do, to quit. That comes after he told a Commons committee yesterday it was reasonable to suggest the PM breached the ministerial code when he was fined by police over Partygate. The independent advisor on ministers' interests also told the panel resignation is one of the few tools available to advisors in expressing their frustrations. Well, the Labour Party deputy leader, Angela Rayner says Boris Johnson's government is mired in sleaze, and she renewed calls for him to go. Also in the news tonight, the Home Secretary insists the government will continue with its plan to deport illegal migrants to Rwanda. That's despite a last-minute ruling last night by the European Court that stopped a planned deportation flight. A spokesperson for the Prime Minister says they're keeping all options open on the table, including potentially withdrawing from the European Convention on Human Rights. Priti Patel says preparations for the next flights, though, have already begun.
While this decision by the Strasbourg court to intervene was disappointing and surprising given the repeated and considered judgments to the contrary in our domestic courts, we remain committed to this policy.
In other news, the Prime Minister says he's hoping for progress in the coming days on the Russian blockade of Ukrainian grain. In a phone call this evening, Boris Johnson told President Zelensky that Ukraine could count on the UK's unwavering support. Mr Johnson called Russia's naval barricade of grain exports in the country unforgivable. President Zelensky has warned millions of people globally may starve if Russia stops Ukraine exporting grain from its ports. Here, the cricketer Azim Rafiq says he's a step closer to closure after racism charges were brought against Yorkshire Cricket Club. The England and Wales Cricket Board are accusing the club and several unnamed people of bringing the game into disrepute. An independent panel of Cricket Discipline Commission panellists will now look at the cases this autumn. Mr Rafiq says the 2 years since he first blew the whistle over allegations of racism and bullying at Headingley has been gruelling. And lastly, Prince William has called England female footballers trailblazers as he wished them luck ahead of the home Euros next month. The Duke of Cambridge visited the football squad at their Burton-upon-Trent headquarters as part of his duties as chairman of the FA. Prince William says the Lionesses, as they're called, will do the country proud. And he was presented with some replica shirts for his 3 children by the captain, Leah Williamson. On TV, online and on your radio via DAB+, you're with GB News. Now more from Headliners.
And welcome back to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans. Joining me tonight, 2 men that look like they've just spent the evening facilitating a high-stakes poker night for some questionable Russian oligarchs. It is Josh Howie and Leo Kearse. I don't entirely understand the thinking behind that. They just put it on the chili box.
I was the waiter. Obviously, I was the waiter.
Yeah. I like the way you... Well, maybe the Scorpion suggests a certain amount of high-stakes gaming.
I think I'm actually in the game.
Yeah.
I can win a yacht.
You do dress
like in Bullseye.
Yes.
You dress like a very rich person.
A rich Bullseye contestant.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like one of those billionaires that's just got so much money they don't need to...
This is like...
you want to talk about not needing to try.
I'm not trying.
Don't want to see too much division before we get started. Let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages and then we can crack on with the row. We start with the Daily Mail. They have Raab's threat to ignore Euro court rulings and a photograph of Bowel Babe's gloriously winning smile at Royal Ascot. The next is the Telegraph. They've gone with Lord Geidt resigns as Johnson's ethics chief. That is obviously tonight's top story. There is a photograph there of a woman tending a Sussex vineyard, however, which is a little closer to home for me. And it felt like I was going to be executed. That is in the Independent. They have got the men on the flight, the failed Rwanda deportation flight. They tell their stories. Next, we have The Guardian. PM under pressure again as second ethics advisor quits. And Patel faces outcry over Rwanda shambles. The Financial Times have the 3/4-point rate rise as the Fed steps up inflation fight. That is the first increase of its kind, by which I imagine they mean 0.75% since 1994. And a picture of Xi and Putin demonstrating their loyalty to one another as EU leaders line up behind Ukraine. The Mirror have Please Save Beatrix. Beatrix is a potentially tragic toddler, the daughter of a couple who had already donated the heart of their stillborn child, now need a donor organ for their other daughter. An extraordinary coincidence. We wish them well. The Daily Express have furious Priti attacks secrecy of Euro courts. The Express certainly making it clear whose side they're on, and Dame Deborah's winning smile once again at Royal Ascot. And finally, the Daily Star, which barely resembles a newspaper at all on this occasion, but they've gone with good news alert, hallelujah, boffins on verge of pill to replace exercise at gym. I'm not sure that is good news, but I can see why they might try and sell it that way. OK, those are the headlines. Let's see what's inside. So we start with Thursday's Telegraph. Shockwaves have been sent through Downing Street by this one. The news that Boris Johnson actually had an ethics advisor.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be a tough job. Second only to his hairstylist.
Yes.
But it's another crisis for Boris. It's only been like 20 minutes since the last one.
I suppose it's the same crisis seen through a slightly different prism, isn't it?
It's a repercussion from the last crisis. So his ethics advisor, Lord Christopher Geidt, has resigned, a surprise resignation apparently. Downing Street didn't see it coming. In the wake of revelations about lockdown-breaking parties in Downing Street and Boris misleading Parliament or lying to Parliament. And it's actually his second ethics advisor to resign. So back in 2020, Sir Alex Allen resigned after Boris overruled his finding that Priti Patel had bullied staff.
Ah, that one, yes, I do remember that. It's a bit like Trump's spokespeople, aren't they? They used to sort of turn those over once or twice a week. I remember there was a period in the middle of his reign, and it kept things interesting, But have I not been paying attention? Is this a new thing that they've brought in just for Boris Johnson anyway? I mean, did Tony Blair have an ethics advisor? You shouldn't really need one, should you? It's like having a sort of governess when you're 7 or something to remind you to mind your manners.
And to be honest, having a slice of cake isn't as bad as invading Iraq.
Well, this is something I've been saying, or indeed refusing to admit that you had sexual relations with a woman in the and having your wife lie for you as. But anyway,
Is that what Tony Blair did?
Well, that was HRC, wasn't it? It was Bill Clinton was relentlessly lying, and he's like held up as the highest, the finest liberal president of our lifetime. Anyway, we get. But I do seriously. Is it a new thing? I can't imagine Churchill had an ethics advisor. I can't imagine Macmillan had one. I can't even imagine Thatcher had one.
It's part of HR just expanding.
It does
expanding
feel
like
that
insulation
way,
foam, just filling up every crevice and using all available bandwidth and resources and money.
Managerialism run. It's like metastasising. What do you think? You're probably more sympathetic to the poor chap.
Well, no, I'm not really. I think he should have resigned earlier.
Right.
Frankly, he had his chances.
The instant he took the job.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. I will do my best. I resign.
Have a look at him. We've got one of the biggest liars ever as our Prime Minister. And he said, I'm going to leave if it's not independent. Then he sort of changed the rules, like Boris Johnson changed the rules so it wasn't independent. That's when he should have left. That was probably about 6 months ago. Him hanging on until now.
You have to admire that.
What, just clinging in the... of course, change the rules.
Just wait there. Just 1 minute. Oh, look, it's...
Well, he's got his revenge because it seems to have come out of the blue. It brings Partygate back into the news, which is exactly what the Tories were afraid of, the people who put in those letters. They know it's just going to drip feed over the next year until we have an election finally.
Yeah.
Do you think this is going to be like when the Tories, under John Major, they won the election unexpectedly against Kinnock, and I think it was only about a few months later that they crashed out of the ERM, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And that basically remained the narrative for the remainder of that...
Well, possibly because Boris is, remarkably popular with voters. I mean, he delivered an 80-seat majority. I think polls.
He was popular.
Polls are very ephemeral, and I think really, if push comes to shove against Starmer, like Boris could perform strongly. But there does seem to be a concerted effort within the Tories to get rid of him because this is coming. Just the timing of this, and with the fact that it's a surprise. So on Monday, which is just yesterday. I know that's a long time in politics, but just yesterday, apparently Lord Geidt had said he's going to stay on as the ethics advisor.
Well, I saw a thing when he said it was quite interesting. I was quite intrigued by the dilemma he felt he had, which was that he knew that Boris had broken certain rules and certainly acted unethically. But he felt that if he brought that to Boris's attention, he might refuse to do anything about it, and that would make his position untenable. So rather than do that, I was like, but it's not an entirely unfamiliar. It's basically the story of constitutional monarchy, isn't it? The Queen, in theory, has the power to refuse to ratify, statute and so on. But if she ever were to do so, the whole thing would end immediately. He's basically saying, "I'm like the Queen." Anyway, obviously,
I'm like the Queen, and I want to collect that salary. And then.
Anyway, Thursday's Guardian next, looming rail strikes, Josh. This feels a lot more serious to me than an ethics advisor.
So it looks like it's going to happen next week. It's just going to be a total disaster
3 days? Is it 3
Well,
days?
it's split. Oh, it's 21st, 23rd, 25th. But because of that, it means that those other off days are going to be them trying to get the system back running.
Yeah.
So it's just the whole week's going to be.
They'll almost be worse than the days when you just know not to travel.
Yeah,
aren't
absolutely.
They? Yeah.
And they're just parts of the week. Good news is that COVID's on a spike. So if we can get those two things to sort of coincide. Have a little week off.
And is this, remind me, is this ASLEF and the RMT? Because they're slightly different.
Yeah, this is RMT, and it's like 40,000 RMT. Yeah. So workers have done this. Their Network Rail basically have been in negotiations with them, but what the criticism is that the government hasn't really stepped in.
They haven't been present.
No, for this, whether that's part of their strategy or not. I mean, I was somewhat sympathetic to the strikers when it first was announced, because I was like, well, OK, they haven't had a pay rise so long. And then it turns out they got like these £750 bonuses. No one lost their jobs during the whole thing. And then you look at some of their salaries, which are crazy, like 58,000. The median salaries, £59,000. That's the median salary for a driver. And for anybody working in that sector, £44,000.
And to be brutally honest, I mean, it's not even a tough job as driving jobs go, is it? I mean, it's not even like trying to drive a truck or a bus.
No steering wheel.
No, exactly. I mean,
like...
the one thing that they do confront is the possibility of suicides. I recognise that, and that can be very upsetting. But that aside...
I'm fine with that.
It's actually a great job.
If you're a total sociopath, then that is a bonus.
£59,000 a year.
So there's them, and they are mainly complaining about paying conditions. But the ASLEF people, that's a slightly more existential crisis from their point of view, because they know that a lot of the jobs of the members that they have are essentially redundant. They've been rendered redundant by technology. They're hanging on. They've run off the edge of the cliff of time, and they've yet to sort of feel the pull of gravity. And they are essentially blackmailing the company into
keeping their jobs,
sticking over as complete sinecures. It's like something out of the Catholic Church in the 15th century or something.
And blackmailing the public as well. And the public, pay into the taxes. Gave a £16 billion bailout to the rail industry during lockdown. And, rail workers were furloughed while people at Tesco were having to, still go and, confront COVID and stack shelves and work at the tills. And, this idea that they haven't had pay rises, over the last 10 years, rail workers have seen wages rise by 39%. Compare that to police, who've seen a 7% rise. So they're not in any way, lacking pay rises.
Especially considering the economic challenges we've all experienced in the last few years. I think quite a few stand-up comedians would probably settle for just not having had a massive pay cut. Thursday's Times now. Keir Starmer has a Disney Plus account, it seems, and is not afraid to use it, Leo.
So Keir Starmer is trying to shake off his the perception of him as being boring and stuffy. So he's delivered an animated performance in the Commons, replete with pop culture references. But when we say pop culture, this is Keir Starmer. So this is what he said was, he thinks he's Obi-Wan Kenobi. The truth is he's Jabba the Hutt. So these references...
Oh, no, you didn't!
These references...
That's like 1979.
Yeah, these references are 40 years old. So, he's not exactly, down with K-pop.
I suppose he could have gone for that one that everyone hated from the middle three. Who was the sort of one that talked jive? Do you remember him?
Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah. That was more awkward. But yes, that's extraordinary. He went for these are not the droids you're looking for, and he couldn't even do the voice, could he? You've got to be able to do the voice.
Yeah. It never really works when politicians try and be cool. Like, remember when William Hague tried to suddenly be cool? He put on a baseball cap and said that he drank 11 pints of cider or something. He just looked like a wally.
Why can we not have leaders of the opposition who could quote Shakespeare or Chesterton or Pope or someone,
I don't think they should do that.
Like all the cool people.
Well, I mean, I would at least
we don't want total
respect
nerds.
that.
I don't want Morrissey, an 18-year-old
like
Morrissey.
Something out of the Dunciad.
But Keir Starmer, that seems to be the biggest complaint against him, that he's boring. I like that, personally. That's what I would want in someone.
I don't mind when the country's boring. I don't mind when there's no great... I know what you mean. You don't want to lurch from crisis to crisis. That's fine. That doesn't necessarily equate with a boring leader, because boring leaders, boring personalities, actually fail to galvanise departments.
I can see that, but I think I think he's got like hidden depths in his own thing, but I just don't think
he's got no hidden.
No, you don't think he's got hidden depths?
No,
I think
everything.
He does. I don't know.
He's just like a walking focus group. There's no authentic drive.
No. I agree. I'm saying that I think he does have an authentic self, and I think unfortunately, like a lot of these, they start getting scared and they start getting self-conscious about it. And you're right. Then the focus groups
we have
do
the
come in.
ridiculous extremes because Johnson is obviously an
all
absolute catastrophe. He's actually like a fight in a jumble sale, and Starmer is sort of comes out looking like Man at CNA from 1984. Somewhere between them, there must be a happy meet, and then we got Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's demonstrate but if you could triangulate those three, I think you might come up with somebody. Tony Blair, I suppose. Oh, what have I said? Thursday's Mirror. We're skipping ahead to the story in which the World Health Organization are negating the real threat that monkeypox poses, namely the potential for racism. I don't quite understand why.
Yes, the World Health Organization is trying to come up with a new name for monkeypox that doesn't offend any cultural, social, national, regional, professional, or ethnic group. It's obviously the most important thing when you're dealing with a pandemic is to go into a laboratory and isolate the thing that makes the name racist. And
you can understand when they said the China virus. I mean, I personally thought it wasn't. It was reasonable. Like when we started off with the Wuhan virus and that sort of thing. People were saying because it came from there.
Well, the trouble,
monkeypox doesn't carry any connotations. What are people?
I think it makes people scared of monkeys. And it can be harboured in rats, and so you don't need to be in you don't need to just stay away from monkeys to avoid.
The actual contagion seems to be mainly it's like close visit. It's not actually an STD exactly, is it? It's not about genital
contact. Rub your skin.
Like lots of cuddling and sweaty bodies with shirts off at discos and that kind of thing. Right? That's what is happening. There's no racism.
Yeah, but I mean,
no. But I guess I think they're monkeys associated with Africa, seems to be, but which is where supposedly it originated, or the first human case was in the Republic.
All that's going to confuse people now. They're going to come up with a new name for people, and people first monkeypox and now this.
I think that they should call it the China virus.
Yes.
I think they should bring back the China virus. Call this the China virus.
The China virus?
Yeah.
But it's not been anywhere near China.
I know, but I liked it.
You like the China virus, right? You're a Trumpian.
What about cuddlepox?
They've got a name. Well, that'd be great. Then you'd know to avoid
not
cuddles.
to cuddle, exactly.
Yeah, don't worry about face masks. Don't worry about monkeys at the zoo.
Sexy rubbing pox.
But they do have a name for it, and this is a really catchy name that's bound to catch on. It's lowercase h, uppercase M, uppercase P, uppercase X, uppercase V.
Oh, God, that's my password.
I mean, he's one-time only code.
He plays for Ukraine, I think.
This is like AOC's new name for people from South America. Thursday's Times, gentlemen. Are cryptocurrencies still a sound investment? You have this, Josh.
Well, there's been a massive decline over the last week or so. I know every time that seems to come into the press every few months, but this one is huge.
Yep.
And I would just like to apologise to anybody who's invested in cryptocurrency because I finally took the jump last week. The whole time this has been going up, 10 years now, I've been going, it's all going to fall apart. Yeah. It's all going to fall apart. And I thought, finally, you know what? I'll put 200 quid into it. And literally, it's gone down 2/3 like the day after.
Listen, mate, I've managed to lose money on crypto on every
curve of it. Okay, I feel slightly guilty that I was the last idiot standing.
But this story is Bill Gates explaining that it
feeling all superior. He's like, I've got my 144 billion or whatever, 121 billion.
Mate, and
you're all idiots for trying to make some money.
Well, he makes fun of NFTs as well, which are linked to cryptocurrency. So this is non-fungible tokens. So it's basically a digital image, but you've got the rights to it. And he's being sarcastic. He says that obviously expensive digital images of monkeys are going to improve the world immensely. This is the guy who came up with that annoying little paperclip. I mean, at least the monkeys don't appear when I'm trying to do a Word document and mess it up for me.
The thing with the NFTs, and I did find the monkeys annoying, but generally speaking, it's an early attempt, isn't it, to integrate culture and digital cryptocurrency. And obviously, I think it's likely to be a bit, up and down. It's going to be bumpy. But even now, after this catastrophic fall, Bitcoin is still up well over 100% on where it was this time 2 years ago, which is still remarkably good for anyone who invested in March 2020, for instance.
Yeah.
Most investments, generally speaking, Silicon Valley has bucked that trend for a few years, but generally speaking, most investments, you're lucky if you get 5% a year.
Yeah.
Warren Buffett, the world's most successful investor over a period of time, gets between 10 and 12%, maybe 15 in a really good year.
In fact, he's quoted in this article, and he highlights one of the problems with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is they're not really backed by anything. They don't produce anything. It's all, as Bill Gates says, it's the greater fool theory. So the idea is that somebody even more stupid than you is going to buy it off you at a higher price because it's not giving a dividend, it's not generating any product or anything.
The counter-argument would be, I believe, if you were pro-cryptocurrency, that we are seeing the emergence of an alternative to fiat currency. Fiat currency being that which is only backed by the guarantee of the state, doesn't have gold or whatever. And it's just going to continue inflating. It's a little bit like betting on a bouncy castle that isn't fully inflated yet. You don't know how big it's going to be. But if it were, for instance, to be able to be as big as gold, you know, which is like, some would say is like the archaic, you know, the original form of money, then it's still got a long way to go, but it's going to be a bumpy ride. But if you invest and just sit tight, 5 years, 10 years' time, you'll probably still do OK. I think Bitcoin,
but then we don't know
the tiny little ones, maybe not so.
We don't know if this is the bouncy castle that's going to end up being the one that everybody wants to go on.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That is.
So you're saying I shouldn't have just sold today?
I'm afraid so. OK, that's it for part one. Coming up, we have Saudi Arabia cancelling rainbows, women in the Taliban run media, and a crackdown on those weird American candy stores. I'm very in favour of that. See you in a brief few moments.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
with honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Simon Evans, Josh Howie and Leo Kearse. Thursday's Independent now and an Orwellian masterclass from the Chinese education system, Leo.
So China is apparently rewriting school books in Hong Kong to teach students that the city was never a British colony. So it was a British colony for 99 years before it was given back to China. So instead of saying it was a UK colony, the Chinese government is going to say that it never recognised the 19th century treaties that ceded Hong Kong to Britain. And the ruling Communist Party maintains that the agreements signed were unequal treaties. And I should imagine they're not going to be teaching much about Tiananmen Square or Tibet or the plight of the Uyghurs.
This is a bit of I don't quite understand what they hope to benefit from this, if any children were to ask awkward questions, because it was under British rule throughout that time. There's no escaping that fact.
For those kids, they don't know that. I mean,
but the point I'm making is, if it were under British rule for 99 years and the Chinese government saying we didn't recognise those treaties because they were unequal treaties, well, that simply means that they were cowed into submission by the military force, the prestige of the British government. They didn't feel able to challenge it, despite the fact that it would, if anything, it would be more humiliating.
But although that could work in their favour, because they're saying that's why we need to be strong now, so that never happens, that humiliation. Because I know it is a big deal in China, that humiliation, and they vow that that's part of what drives them forward, is this feeling that they were left behind, or that they were sort of subjugated almost by the West. You know?
They were unequal treaties. I mean, the Opium Wars, you could certainly make a case that were a very immoral business. You know the history of it. It was fairly extraordinary. They basically, the Chinese had a huge balance of trade deficit, or a surplus rather. They were winning the balance of trade war. They were getting loads of British silver because we wanted all their silk and fancy luxury goods in the mid-19th century.
We were just getting NFTs.
Exactly, we were getting monkey face. So we basically, the East India Company started creating opium in Bengal, I think it was, and then just shipping it straight up to China, getting loads of Chinese hooked on it, and it reversed the balance of trade direction. Amazing. And we got all our silver back by literally getting the Chinese hooked on opium. I mean, it was extraordinarily...
we were so smart.
I know.
Oh, my God, the British Empire was amazing. How can anybody criticise it?
It's not often acknowledged, I don't think it's adequately acknowledged, that the Chinese have essentially... They have had their revenge in the last 10 or 15 years by getting us addicted to cheap plastic. It is exactly the same thing.
Don't smoke it, mate.
Anyway, Thursday's Guardian now. One place I get the feeling one place is not celebrating the holy month of Pride. And that is Saudi Arabia, Josh.
Yes, so there's this extraordinary footage of these sort of security guards going around the shopping centre in Saudi Arabia and just gathering up anything that has a rainbow flag on it, because of rainbow...
Skittles.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. It's like some ridiculous things, like pencil cases, skirts, hats...
Sex toys.
Yeah, dildo. But
I think we actually have got video of it. I don't know whether... Let's have a look and see what they got.
أثناء جولة تفتيشية رصدنا عدد من المخالفات نافذة الآداب العامة اللي هي مثل منتجات زي هذه بشكل صريح الشكل الداخلي أيضا هذه نشوفها إيحاء من الشكل الخارجي.
So, sorry, what were you saying?
Well, it's just a strange mix of, the sort of spitting image, effectively a towel on the head, and the Walmart uniform.
Yes, it's a slight... There was a massive confusion and clash of cultures.
Why did they blur out the items? That was what was really weird. Like, these pencil cases were so dangerous. The pride flag is so pernicious in its spreading of homosexuality that to even see the rainbow is enough to,
But it's quite obvious. I mean, they were in a shop that had managed to stock rainbow pencil cases. I didn't see any sort of specific Pride propaganda there or whatever. Have they only just realised what this stuff is?
It was probably the Irish Tourist Board shop. This is just selling stuff in the Emerald Isle, little leprechauns with rainbow hats.
Children have always liked rainbows, haven't they? It's not some new invention. I mean, that is arguably quite...
and I'd say this is arguably progress, because at least they're throwing the rainbow-coloured things in the bin instead of throwing gay people off the tops of buildings.
That is true. I suppose we could say that. Staying in the region from Thursday's Telegraph, the plight of Afghan female newsreaders, Leo.
Oh, yes. So in Afghanistan, obviously, the Taliban took over when America just suddenly, abruptly pulled out and left an absolute cavity of power in the country. So female newsreaders are forced to cover their faces now. Yep. The latest Taliban edict orders women to cover their faces outside the home with a burqa, and it's a whole body. They've got to cover their whole body, so it's it's very difficult to present the news when you're completely
But they are allowed
covered.
to carry on presenting the news. I suppose,
they are allowed
there is that.
They are allowed to carry on presenting the news, and male co-presenters showed solidarity for the first week by covering their faces with masks. But yeah, basically...
But they got tired of that, did they?
Yeah.
I mean, Well,
for a week.
we did our best.
And they're like, actually, we like this new regime. I'm getting promoted next week. You know, I'm getting your slots. But yeah, and if women don't comply, presenters and journalists don't comply, then the Ministry of Vice and Virtue will punish their husbands, fathers, and brothers.
The Ministry of Vice and Virtue. That would be a fantastic nightclub.
It's called The Guardian in this country.
Well, I'd say the one thing about the Taliban is they do not actually know what a woman is.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, good luck if Eddie Izzard goes
and they
out
take
there.
the court and investigate.
If she tries to, please cover my face. I'm a woman.
But what do you think? Is it a kind of weird? I mean, it is quite odd, isn't it, that you cover a woman and then allow her to be reading the. That feels to me like they are slightly caught in a slightly schizoid attitude.
Are you saying they haven't, this ideology has got some errors? Oh my God, that sounds Islamophobic.
Well, I imagine it's hard for them to fight. They argue that the burqa or the hijab is like according to God's law. That's not true,
right?
But to Islamic law. But I guess they can't find the things to get the women out of these jobs according to Islamic law. So they have to sort of start, but they are escalating that. They said that they would let girls go to secondary school. They banned that. So these things are coming in incrementally. Well, it is going backwards. It's the greatest crime of Biden's administration, just abandoning Afghanistan like that. It's disgusting. And
it was set up by Trump, to be fair. I mean, he had.
Yeah, but he cancelled. His first day in office, he cancelled, the pipeline and all this stuff. So he could have carried on. Yeah.
I think maybe it is an attempt to try, knowing how annoyed Nick gets in here with the temperature. If it goes, when he has to. I mean, just saying a news reading studio, I would imagine with the lights on them are probably not the coolest kind. Maybe it is essentially constructive dismissal.
Maybe Nick needs a burqa.
Yeah, maybe he does. Independent next, and France are still wrestling with issues of female autonomy themselves, Josh.
Yeah, so the bikini, you guys know the bikini? Mm-hmm. It's the all-in-one thing for swimming. Yep. So that was banned in France about 10 years ago, and it's making a comeback. So the town of Grenoble is now taking the government, the top court, France's top court, there to a ruling to see whether it's going to be able to be allowed back or not. There are arguments that it's more hygienic, you could sort of argue, no, because it keeps everything locked away. I'm just thinking, I just remember when I went swimming once and I used to have a shaved head, and someone told me off for not having a cap on. I was like, but I've got no hair. They were like, no, that's the rules. You have to wear... I was like, that doesn't make any sense. It's to stop hair falling.
It's probably better than the knitted swimming costume I remember having as a small boy.
Yeah,
wow. How old are you, mate?
Yeah. My
Victorian era.
Everything. What do you think?
Well, they look like people would drown in them. Yeah, I mean, I think France has banned the burkini. Now there's this challenge. I don't know. We famously Boris refused to ban it in the UK. I mean, France is wrestling with issues at the moment because they've had a huge influx over the past few decades of Islamic immigrants, which has quite changed the culture.
Islamic swim teams.
And they've seen some negative. Obviously, we've seen some positive effects, but they've seen some negative effects, and we've seen the horrific terror attacks, and also the culture clash. And there's, I think in the UK, different cultures assimilate much more easily for some reason. I don't know if it's because we've got a slightly lower level of immigration or what it is.
But I think in Paris particularly, like the inners, everybody gets shoved
into the banlieue.
Gets pushed to the outside, and it is much more...
There is also a sense, isn't there, that the French seaside, there's a tradition of beautiful women in scanty... it's part of, the Cannes Film Festival and all the rest of it.
This is men coming up with this.
It's part of their worldwide appeal, whereas in Britain, I think everyone would go, put some... A story that has been rumbling on for some time, I don't know, it's just disappeared now. Well, here we go. The ubiquitous and baffling American candy straws. I've noticed these dotted up and down Oxford Circus and Oxford Street and Regent. There is a sort of... I don't know, there's something quite vile about them, but it's quite hard to put your finger on. But apparently
it says American in the title. Is that does it for you?
Very toxic sort of...
Oh, no, it's toxic. I mean, these sweets have got like 3 times the amount of sugar that you can legally make in the UK. So they're all imported. But Westminster Council is going on a bit of a hunt for them. They seized £100,000 worth of fake chocolate bars and Wonka bars and various other toys.
Wonka bars being the ones that have a golden ticket in where you go to... I thought that was like a...
Yeah, the Willy Wonka.
They really exist now, do they? Yeah, they wash back into reality.
I guess they do.
It's amazing you get counterfeit chocolate bars now. I mean, I'm used to counterfeit cigarettes and things like that, but for something so, relatively cheap, although, of course, they're not cheap in these shops. Well,
they're not.
Is it like the pick and mix at the cinema? Is it that?
No, it's way more expensive. I mean, it's like because it's someone charge like £10 for for a box of cereal.
Yeah. You can spend a whole Bitcoin in there. It's incredible. But there's a £7.9 million tax scam that Westminster Council are investigating with these shops.
Yeah.
And I'm just amazed. So these shops are like the front of a tax scam. I think the building gets doesn't have to pay full rates because it's got a shop in it, so they get a shop in. But then the shop also dodges taxes by closing down before the financial year, so they're not liable, and they fold, so they don't pay any tax. So it's a way for everyone involved to avoid tax. But I'm just amazed. Why are they so expensive if they're avoiding tax? Surely if it's some sort of money laundering tax dodge scheme, everything should be cheap.
But it's imported as part of it. But there is a very funny thing. It says here they're using YouTube to lure children into their store. It's like, no, you're using sweets.
I think that will do it. That's it for part 2. Part 3 is a cracker. We've got the backlash to Sir Lenny Henry's comments about Glastonbury and the other festivals, the inevitable mass adoption of multicultural London English, and why left-wing people struggle with robust debate. See you there.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah. We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
And welcome back to Headliners with me, Simon Evans. A man that's just got back from his golf club annual awards, Josh Howie and Leo Kearse. Looking splendid in a Borough jacket.
Thank you so much.
It speaks very well of you.
Well, we got a lot of complaints because my biceps were too sort of attractive and I was too physically dominant there for a second.
Thursday's Mail now, and Lenny Henry has a multitude of talents, but is sociological crowd analysis one of them, Leo?
Well, we're not sure. I mean, this might be like an offhand comment that was plucked from an interview and given star billing, but he said he was discussing music festivals, Glastonbury in particular, and he said, "I'm always surprised by the lack of black and brown faces at festivals. And that's how I feel watching TV adverts, but with white faces.
You give it 3 days, they usually go quite black and brown, certainly if it's been raining, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, you do tend to... I mean, it's not quite the same thing as actually being black. But he says, wow, that's still very much a dominant culture thing. And I think it's, you know, a lot of people have criticised him online, you know, saying it's not really fair. You can't force people to go to Glastonbury. The tickets are allocated on a ballot, so it's not as if they're just hand-picking, you know, white people to go. It's just, you know, certain groups like different things. Glastonbury's not very good. So, you know...
I tend to agree. It attracts a certain demographic, doesn't it? You could divide them by race. There is a degree of that. It's also a class thing. It seems to be quite middle class.
Well, they're £300 a ticket.
Yeah. And it's, you know, a certain... It's people who are still trying to... not in denial about the fact they're no longer students, isn't it?
But it's also... you have larger ethnic minorities within cities.
Yeah.
If you go out to Glastonbury, which is bringing people from across the country, then it's going to you're going to go, oh, there's less... ethnic minority people here than there are in my city. Well, that's because this is people from all over the UK.
My suspicion is, I think it depends on the tone of voice. He made these remarks you see them in print, and it can look like he's race baiting. But if it just, I think he said the word fascinating. He didn't say I think it's terrible or I think it's despicable. He said it's quite interesting that black people don't like festivals. I'm like, well, that is perfectly... it's not that interesting, but it's, you know...
I don't know, I also disagree. When I've been to Glastonbury, I've seen loads of different groups.
Right.
So I don't know.
Would you say too many? But Lenny Henry as well.
Your standards.
It's not his first time race baiting either.
No,
remember when he dressed up with he did Chinese face and you know had
but he's addressed
and he did. Oh, is he is it okay now?
No, I'm not saying so. He has talked about it extensively.
Right.
He has got a documentary coming out in which, and I did see a quote. This annoyed me more than the other one. He was like, it's about black people thinking, well, you know, I've assimilated, I've done my bit, now what happens? And I'm thinking, well, come on, you are a knight of the realm. You are Sir Lenny Henry. You're the Chancellor of Birmingham University. You have, you know, been accepted into the hearts of every home in the... I mean, what more do you actually expect at this point?
The struggle is real.
I dare say there might be other people feeling that, but I'm not sure who's the figurehead for that kind of complaint at this point. Anyway. Thursday's Times once more, and a fascinating topic, the malleable, somewhat affected nature of accents, Josh.
Yes, supposedly we're all going to be talking in London patois. It's going to be spreading across the UK. They're saying partly because of rising house prices, so people are going to have to moving out of inner cities. Did you guys read this article? Because I didn't understand a load of these words.
Well,
they were saying we're going to be ubiquitous.
Wagwan.
Wagwan, I didn't know what that meant. Waste man, I suppose I'm a waste man. Peak, mandem, pain. I mean, I've sort of... I don't know, I've never...
The only one I recognise, and I have heard a few people use in Brighton, is say man instead of I or he.
Okay.
So you just use it as a universal pronoun and go, man's tired.
Yeah.
And it just means I'm tired.
But it's so...
the man is tired.
It's a bit transphobic.
Yeah,
really. It's so cringeworthy when you see white people using this dialect. I'm not being funny. Like, and it's mostly going to be the kids who are at Glastonbury who are you know they're going to have a didgeridoo and they're going to have their hair in dreads and they're going to be talking about bamba clarts.
I remember in about, I guess, 1982, something like that, Minder came on the telly. I lived in St Albans. Until that point, we all had, like, home counties accents. Overnight, every child became a Cockney. every single, you know, and it was... And Minder wasn't even that cool, really, you know.
Sam, I went to public school and everybody there was just on a sort of mission to sound as street as they could. It was pathetic.
Yeah.
I'm told that Bamaclat is an Ofcom violation, and you will have to apologise, whoever said that. I don't even know what it means.
Oh, really?
Myself, but yeah. So you've just sworn in dialect. But seriously, if that offended anyone else, sincere apologies. Telegraph next. Staying on language, the Open University has something to say about the English language, Leo.
Yeah, so apparently the English language is racist. So material in a module titled "What is Whiteness?" that was taught to lecturers and professors at the Open University stated, along with religion, politics, law and customs, white superiority is embedded in the linguistic and cultural psychology of the English language. I mean, we're in England. Surely we're allowed to speak English in England.
But is it... I'm quite interested in this. I wonder whether they're talking about the superiority of the English over the French, for instance, which I'm sure that's embedded. We have terms like French letter or Dutch courage, these words that are disparaging towards our continental neighbours. But then there's also the sense that we privilege the actual word white to mean good things. You know, you have a white knight and a black knight. They're both knights in armour, right? But traditionally, the white knight is good, the black knight lurks in...
I think they're saying it's a wider scope than that, i.e. English as a language of the West.
Yeah.
Being supposedly superior to the colonial...
So it's just the idea that our language is just better.
Yes.
It's got a kind of hegemony in business and international trade.
That's because it's American, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And pretty soon we'll all be speaking Mandarin, so they don't need to worry too much.
It is a shame if they're critiquing it, isn't it, rather than just finding it fascinating. So I'm sure Sir Lenny Henry would. The evolution of languages is an amazing thing, but English is the most extraordinary mongrel language. That's the great strength of it, right? It's got elements of Latin, elements of Anglo-Saxon. There's Persian words. There are words.
But that's what language is in general.
But not all words. No, French is nothing like as French is much more homogeneously Latin.
Well, they've spent a lot more time. Right now, they desperately trying to preserve it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that is the great thing. We are an extraordinary success story for having essentially, linguistically speaking, open borders. I'm not saying I want to roll that.
Well, this course has been criticised by one of the professors who says it. Dr. Zarir Massini, he's a historian of the British Empire, says that it basically is unhistorical, it's ignorant, and it ignores a contribution by people like Salman Rushdie and people from so it's
absolutely.
And this course cost £500,000 from Santander.
So Santander have paid £500,000 for this training course. I bang with Santander, so I'm moving my account. If they're wasting money that should be, that's my fees that I pay for my account. They should be like cutting my fees and not paying for ridiculous training, saying that the language I speak is racist.
Are they sending their sort of branch staff on this?
No. This is like they put the money into
sponsor it.
But I'm just going to say if I've got some bitcoins if you want to invest.
Well, I've got some magic beans. Maybe we can swap.
Okay, well.
Times next, and policy at Cambridge University is causing some unease, Josh. Who's stuck in the academia.
Oh, yes. So Cambridge dons are balking at the thought of giving respect. Basically, what's happened is they're trying to do a second draft of this new policy document. It's addressing inappropriate behaviour. Yeah. And one of the things they're saying is you're meant to give mutual respect to each other. But then different dons are saying, well, wait a minute, why should... if I'm part of this field, why do I have to respect... If I'm like a part of the religious field, why do I have to respect... there's a difference between showing mutual respect and saying tolerance and courtesy, which I think would be better.
I remember this conversation. This was 6 months or a year ago or something. I'm sure this exact conversation, and it was settled in favour of tolerance and...
But I think there's someone new has come in and it's still... Or someone left.
It's a fine line, isn't it? We were playing with linguistic tricks, but respect does suggest that you think, well, I have my view and you have your view, but there are some things on which professors feel more strongly than that and should be entitled to. I mean, it's perfectly reasonable if you are, like a climate scientist, to take the obvious example. You don't have to respect somebody else's views if they haven't done the reading. You know what I mean? I think they're right to say we don't have to respect, you just have to tolerate it. You're not allowed to physically threaten them or snub them in the canteen, but you don't have to respect their views.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe is it a minefield or are we overthinking it? What do you think?
Or Cambridge University overthinking it.
Thursday's Mail now, and a chink in the debating armour of left-wingers has been uncovered, Leo. I think they screenshotted this a minute ago with the wrong story, but if they can bring that back up again. There's there we are. Left-wing audiences avoid reading negative news stories.
Yeah, so almost half of British people, it's not just left-wingers, almost half of Britons actively avoid the news. That's a figure that's doubled in the past 5 years, which is crazy. You'd think, people would want to be more engaged and want to know more about what's going on. But apparently those on the left avoid the news because it makes them feel overwhelmed, carry feelings of powerlessness, or worry that the news might create arguments.
You're going to win them back, mate.
Babies. No wonder they want the government to wipe their bottoms, whatever acceptable word.
It is interesting, the powerlessness thing, isn't it?
Whereas people on the right are far more likely to avoid the news because they think it is untrustworthy or biased, and they're absolutely right. And the scary thing here, apart from the fact that people are becoming disengaged from the news, I don't know if GBNews can turn that around, but people are becoming disengaged from the news, and they're getting the fastest growing news source is TikTok, which I've got to tell you is a terrible source of news. Like videos, solely made, they're like 8-second videos made by 12-year-olds.
I will say that GBNews is the fastest growing TikTok.
TikTok is fantastic. TikTok, you can trust.
It is interesting, I always think, that the left have that feeling of powerlessness, and I think they project that into the idea that the right are grabbing power all the time, and they don't understand that, you know, power is like contingent, and do you know what I mean? They feel like they have to band together to get power. It seems like there's all this, that's what kind of statism is, isn't it? This kind of massive power grab. And if it's rooted in a sense of powerlessness when they see that events simply unfold and they have no... I think if you can just get your head around the fact that that's what life is like, you'd be a lot happier. What do you think, Josh?
It's. I mean, it's sad if people are feeling like that because, of course, if you're not watching the news, whether you're remaining ignorant about it, and then you're not actually finding the facts of what's going on.
True. Thursday's Independent now. I think it's fair to say that Amber Heard has some of the worst advisors in show business. Before we get on to it, I think we've got some video which will illustrate the point.
In the closing arguments, the Depp lawyer called your testimony the performance of a lifetime and said you were acting. What do you say to that?
Says the lawyer for the man who convinced the world he had scissors for fingers.
Oh, bless her.
I mean,
this is why actors need writers.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't believe that they found somebody in Hollywood who's not sane and balanced. Doesn't make any sense. But yeah, she's basically somehow. Said, Johnny Depp, he's given an amazing performance because he once convinced the world that he had scissors for fingers.
Yeah.
But he didn't. Everybody knew he was playing a character called Edward Scissorhands who had scissors for fingers. And nobody was like, oh my God, Johnny Depp's got scissors for fingers.
And he rocks up in Pirates of the Caribbean. They're like, where are those scissors?
Yeah. He must have had an operation. Now he's a pirate. Oh my God, there's some ghost skeletons. Yeah.
Object permanence.
I mean, maybe that's how Amber sees the world. I'm not sure.
It is quite disturbing, isn't it? I mean, I suppose she's just reaching for hyperbole to kind of go, he's a great actor, but she can't just say that.
Yeah.
In a sense, that would have been a reasonable thing to say. He is a much better actor than her.
Yeah.
You know, it would have been reasonable if she just said that. He's like an A-list movie star. She's been in a few.
But his strength on the stand and in court seemed to be that he was just a regular. He wasn't acting, whereas she seemed to be acting like she really wanted that Oscar.
It must be a great temptation if you're an actor and you're in court to think this could be the role of the lifetime, but it's absolutely a trap, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's almost certain to be.
Well, she came across as very affected and stilted, and it really didn't do her any good.
And nor are the aftershocks. This next one from the Mail comes as no surprise to those of you with crippling self-esteem issues and facial dysmorphia.
Yeah, so staring at yourself on Zoom, as we've been doing for the last couple of years, can lead to anxiety and depression. And it's really hard to not do it. I mean, look, you've got your screen over there. I've got my screen. It's really hard to not look and get depressed.
Yeah.
I'm so bald!
When I was doing Zoom calls, like the 2 years that we were locked down, I actually reinvigorated social life with some friends that I wouldn't see very much of because they would live 50 miles away, and you could see them for a drink, but then you'd have a long, boring train journey. Suddenly you could as easily meet them as you could, your local friends who maybe... So that was wonderful. But I did learn quite early on to create as much of a kind of low-key lighting atmosphere as I could so that I wasn't confronted with my bright, white, shiny face. I would quite often do them by candlelight. So I would look like a Rembrandt.
On a steam-powered computer.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly how I picture you at home.
I loved it. I would wear a hat and I would look as if I was around a brazier, on the wrong side of the railway.
Did you find that out? Because they're saying this sort of experiment that they did found out that drinking actually made the depression worse.
Yeah, well, drinking does. If you're depressed and you drink, you'll only get worse.
I know, but when you have a drink when you're out with mates, actually, it can be invigorating and fun, whereas it seemed to have the opposite effect.
Well, the reason drink is good when you're socialising, and it does work when you're socialising until if you go too far, is because it suppresses your ability to inhibit yourself, doesn't it? It takes away your editor. If you're on your own, that's of no benefit, and all the other aspects of drink kick in, and
definitely try heroin instead.
The Times has a story on the health of the British gaming scene, Josh, an area I believe you're passionate about.
I am indeed. This is slightly different. This is Warhammer, or Games Workshop is the name of the company that owns Warhammer. They have been, I think, the most successful company over the last couple of years.
Wow.
In terms of their shares, they've gone up they've gone 400% up in the last 5 years.
A lot of people painting them at home, I guess.
Well, exactly, that's it. So they were actually really successful already before COVID, but COVID also pushed people into that. It's a very geeky thing.
Yeah.
I'm massively into board games, and I play a few Warhammer games as well.
Do you do the painting as well?
I've tried the painting, but I'm rubbish at it. But I like just having these little systems.
I like them, though. I see some people, I follow some people on Twitter who post their little ones.
Oh, sure.
There's a guy called Tom Chivers, who's a sort of science correspondent, he does that as his hobby, and they're fantastic.
It's amazing. And I can imagine it's quite sort of meditative and whatever. But anyway, they're giving their members of staff £4,000 bonus each.
Wonderful news.
Pretty cool.
Been quite a big week for news. This is going to be our last story of the night. First the singularity, now this. First contact, Leo.
So China says it might have detected signals from an alien civilization, and it can't wait to get them into internment camps.
And you've got 10 seconds to cover it. We've got a signal from aliens after all the crap we've talked about.
That's basically it. It's got this giant Sky Eye telescope, and they've decided to point it into space instead of at their own citizens, and they've discovered these signals that could be from aliens.
Fantastic. That is all we have time for. What an out. Thank you to my guests, Leo and Josh. It's been a pleasure. I have been Simon Evans. I will be back with you again tomorrow night. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis, and live debate that you need to hear.
Quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here.
Joe Biden walking out. Thank you very much for joining us. Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like